So we got the fire a little bit established. We'll see if we can keep it going. If we can do this without the cops showing up, we're okay. If you're wondering how I'm controlling the vacuum, I have a foot pedal below the forge. When I step on it, I kick in that airflow. So we'll let this burn down and get settled so we don't have such a big flame. And then we'll start adding coal, or more of it. The reason it's burning so high right now is I have all that starter material, which is basically wood. Once we go and we catch the coal, and that's all that's burning as far as fuel goes, this will actually look a lot more decent and not as scary. It'll even be smoke free, but we have to let this cook down before we add more coal, otherwise it'll just go out. See, I added a little bit of coal and now it's dying down. I think we got it. We can add some more. What's up, buddy? You want to be mindful with it, because if you just dump a whole bunch of coal on top, you will snuff it out. The stuff doesn't light as easily as one might think. So I think we're ready. We can throw this in here and see what happens. So we'll let that burn down a bit. What I was saying earlier is I typically don't move my fire extinguisher around because I want to have it where I know where it's at. However, since this is the first test fire, it's actually right inside the door. So if anything were to happen, which is highly unlikely because it's colder than crap out here and there's nothing flammable around. Yummy. Yeah! I'm actually going to close the garage door because I have some of these embers flying around. You can come out here if you want, dude. Just make it quick because I don't want that fire going out. Can you grab the red fire extinguisher off my desk over there? So, without moving the camera, I really can't show you this, but those embers are actually burning pretty good, and you'll notice that when I put that airflow through it, it kind of cooks it down. I'm actually going to switch spots because the wind is going the other direction, and I'm not a fan of eating smoke. Can we come around this way? If I tell you, can you step on that pedal? So that's burning pretty good. I feel safe enough to move this guy. See what we got. So, let's see here. It looks a whole lot worse on camera, I can see. The coal has actually caught and started. So I'm going to keep on it a little bit longer, but then, look at that. So that's how you know you have a pretty good fire going. There's actually very, very... My Wi-Fi kind of sucks, so if I'm going in and out, that's why. Move you guys over here. I suspect we'll have... With that connection. There we go. Of course there's a giant pole in the way. Why wouldn't there be? If anybody wants to buy me a tripod, I'm totally down. And there we have it. Workable steel. Now, I started this adventure with coal, not because I hate my gas forge, but coal has a lot easier time getting up to forge weld temperature. So if I remember correctly, what I had left to do with these tongs is basically straightening them out. So we're going to put this back in the pot and put some more heat into that. Now that that fuel's died down a little bit, you can see it's a lot more docile looking fire. It's not as scary looking, and the next time that we start one of these, we won't need that big flame because we've cooked down a lot of that coal into coke. While I'm out here, I should actually forge a little coal shovel so that I don't have to use my thing I'm working on. me a favor and grab that? So without that cap, I'm actually not getting enough air up into that fire, and I'm kind of losing it again. So what do you know? Maybe we will be keeping it for a little while. If I could get it to stay on so I don't singe my hairs, that too will be good. It just went from being 30 degrees out here to something like 90. Now, if I don't piss off the neighbors with a giant coal fire, I'm sure the hammer work will definitely do it. So we're not going to be out here too long. So what I'm trying to do to these tongs, and I refuse to give up even though I kind of screwed them up. It's my first project, so I'm finishing under high water. Is I drew them out way too far and they're not straight. So what we're doing is we're kind of upsetting it back down so that they're manageable and then hopefully getting a straighter shape. This also has to fall into place. But let's put it back in for some more heat. That ash dump definitely needs to get finished up because its absence is actually the reason why that fire is getting so raging hot and I'm burning too much fuel. And probably scared people. But so far so good. Definitely heating that steel up a lot quicker than that gas. The reason I got this is I promised somebody I'd make them an axe, and I need to be able to forge weld. And it's a lot easier to achieve that with a coal fire.
Hey, Dad.
What's up, buddy?
I'm not going inside real quick.
All right, man. So we got it all the way out. Now we just want to do the end right here. Now, because this is a new forge to me, I'm having a tough time figuring out where my hot spots are. You definitely need to decrease that airflow. And if I can't fix that problem by just loosening it or coming up with some sort of solution for tonight, we might just be done. Better. This is actually working exceptionally well. The anvil, again, I'll say it, it's from Holland Anvil, Holland, Michigan. The owner is a super nice guy. Kind of pricey, but worth the money still. If you were kind of tuning in when I first started, you saw that this was a lot wider. We've actually shrunk it a little bit. We want to watch out for cold shuts or anything like that, although this is not an edged tool or anything weird. So, Doug, what I'm making, or at least trying to make, is something that's in the shape of tongs. So the ones I'm holding this with I bought, but I want to be able to make my own because there's several flavors of tongs. And I don't feel like paying $70 a piece when I can make them myself. Or at least, I lie to myself that I can make them. Thus far, it's been working out. We have a visitor. What's up, dude?
I wasn't planning on stopping by, but then I saw you outside.
And you're on Facebook Live.
Oh, hello.
So my good buddy Nate stopped by. Now this is what I mean. This end is very thin, and as I'm striking down to try to upset it, it can collapse onto itself, and if that pinches, that area in between turns into a cold shut. So this is good enough for me at the end. I'm going to keep putting it down because, like I said, I made it too wide when I first started. How's it going?
Pretty good. How many people do you have watching tonight?
Not sure, but this is my first fire of this thing.
How's it going?
I built it myself. It's pretty nifty. I totally thought you were the cop. Work a little bit. Not that this is unsafe or anything. It looked a little scary when I first started it. You might want to stand behind me. Anyways, because it's like a brand new forge and I've never like looked down any of the coal in the coke,
Yeah.
it's a pain in the to start, so I have to have like this roaring fire to get the coal to catch. And I gotta tell you, if my crazy neighbor was doing this, I too would question his sanity and capabilities. Yeah, fair.
I just happened to be nearby, so I thought, and I wasn't planning on stopping by, and then I was like, oh, he's outside.
I am. So the reason the fire's kind of kicking back up now is the back of the forge, this brake drum's pretty big. So there was unlit material and that's now catching. What kind of sucks for me is I found a way better brake drum right after I finished this thing with the big one that I used, so no real turning back. So there it is. We got some heat. We can upset this now. And what you guys might notice is I'm not really pounding on this too hard, you know, like you see the stuff on TV where they're going at it and forged in fire and all this stuff. First of all, hats off to those guys, because I couldn't do that crap in 3 hours. But what I found is forging is much more deliberate and slow. So there it is. We have upset that. Oh, Doug says you should read the comments. I think that was Doug. And that way I can answer questions, I suppose.
Oh, where am I looking to see comments?
Do you like my ghetto stand?
It's very nice.
So
where'd you get the coal?
The coal, actually, I linked up with a bladesmith from Blandford, and he drove it down from like Grant. This was like a shovel or two full, and I have 50 pounds. So, as you might see, even with the little bit that I have, I got pretty far.
He also says, fold it a few times and make some, I think, Damascus steel based on the comment, from what I can see of the comment.
Right? My stand for my phone is nowhere near production quality. And I feel like I should have Nate take a picture of it and post it.
My phone's locked in my car.
It's alright.
And I don't have Facebook.
So, there we go. I'm pretty happy with that. Now what I need to do, other than let this cool down, is kind of make this one look the same. Like if you look at this, see how it's all fat and whatnot? That was kind of a goof on my part. So what we'll be doing is getting this to look the same. That way we can line them up, pin it up, and then just bend it into shape. Again, I'm not sure what the time is, so I don't want to keep going too much longer because I really don't want to piss my neighbors off. Yeah, it is way too late. If they called the cops, they would legit have a complaint. So I feel like I might be saying the words "I'm sorry, officer" soon if I don't quit while I'm ahead. But I got a good fire going, and this is going a lot better than I thought it would. So I might actually just bring up spring steel to vertical, and then see about annealing it. I wasn't able to pick up vermiculite, so we'll see how that goes. You can see how that fire died down a little bit. Now there's more smoke because there's less heat. What was that?
Dan says Walker Stalker's on the way.
What?
Walker Stalker's on the way.
Probably. If they do show up, I'll be full of apologies and act stupid, which isn't really that much acting.
You said it, not me.
I make it a point not to lie. So I would totally love to have like a hand crank bellows and whatnot because that would look a lot less scary. But that's also $150 I don't have. There it is, we got the heat. I think one of the things that really surprised me, if you guys are able to see this, I mean, I've already got it down to shape, is just how easy steel will move if you have it at the right heat. So this kind of looks like the other one. I have to straighten it. I got a little bit of a warp going up. And then what I'll do is I'll lay them side by side and see if I have symmetry to some extent. And that'll give us enough to basically work with tomorrow. Now this, I don't know if you can see the heat or whatnot, it's like a red cherry or whatnot. This is roughly 1200 degrees Fahrenheit and it is way too cold to pound on. So what we'll do is we'll throw it in here, get some heat in the middle, straighten it out, and then we'll call that good. Now, since this fire's going, I might work a little bit on my camp knife. And one thing I'm definitely going to do is add a hood and a chimney, just so this is a little bit more enclosed. Not really for anything super useful or purposeful, but I feel like people would get less freaky if they didn't see, that heat in there. A couple hours, I would say. It lasts quite a while. Like, coal actually burns down quite slowly, or at least so has been my experience. I've been to the forge at Blandford a couple times, and I think the entire time I was there, like, basically they were using a shovel about the size of a, 2 handfuls, and we added coal twice. Even with this, once I, cover it and put it out, I will be able to basically reuse what I have in the fire pot right now. And if you're wondering what a bag of coal costs, 50 pounds is $17. The most costly part of that is riding up north, the Grand. What you see me doing is I'm covering the work with coal and then pushing air up through it. The way this was explained to me is if you think of the coal as having the bed and then the top of it is like the top of a volcano, you actually want your work like right below the top of the volcano. So, I think we have them shaped pretty well. I'm gonna move you guys around. Hopefully I don't lose connection. I'll show you where we're at. What we want is symmetry. So if we look at the two pieces, they're pretty much identical. This one, I need to straighten it a little bit more. And then definitely right here, it's a little warped. I can probably do that cold, but since we got a fire going, why not? And yeah, we're pretty close to making our first set of tongs. They're not pretty, but man, they're ours. Let me put you guys back over here and get that thing back in the fire. It's actually quite toasty next to this thing. I thought I would be cold. Whew. I almost grabbed those in my bare hand. I think I got a couple more imperfections to get out, and then we'll be good. And we got a low battery, apparently. Right. Good suggestion, Doug. So Doug says I should read the questions from the other, so I know they know what I'm answering. So how long does it take until I melt the siding? The heat is actually pretty well concentrated in even just one spot within the fire pot. So unless there's an ember that goes astray, that shouldn't happen, I hope. And there we have it. That is going to be good enough. The rest I can just grind and shape. Woo! Don't want that touching us. So we have symmetry. That'll be the first pair of tongs. What I will do is not point to it with my finger. What we'll do is we'll probably just cold drill a hole in here because I don't have a tie down or hold down. That will give us our hole on one side. We'll match it up with another. The way to get these going so that they're actually workable is you get them together with a bolt, you put them back in the heat, and then you just shape them out. And when you're done, you can actually rivet. So because I don't want to burn myself, I'm going to actually quench this in the snow, which is actually kind of cool to watch, so maybe I'll show you that. Yeah. Just make sure you don't actually touch the basketball hoop. So since I don't have anybody out here with me, I can just leave those on the ground. Or what I've done for this table is I've actually got a little bit of room on the side for stuff that I'm not currently working on. So that I can just put it to the side and I know that that's a piece that's kind of complete. So since I have this thing running, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab a knife that I was working on. If I can find it. There we go. So I started working on this guy in the gas forge, but I don't have a big enough chamber, so what we're going to do is draw that down a little bit so we can finish it up. So how goes life, Nate?
Good, good.
Nate's like, not as well as yours, you crazy son of a...
I don't have random fire things happening.
So if you're wondering how much coal I'm actually adding, it's just a little bit.
Dan says, how long till you melt the siding?
I answered that. I said, so the thing is, the heat is actually really isolated even inside the forge itself. Like, the hot spot is only in this area.
And Doug says, by the way, I'd read the questions for, I can't read it any farther, what you're answering.
It's a good suggestion.
Need a better stand for next time.
I do. So you'll notice that, you know, hanging on to work with the tongs is not as ideal as it could be. So what I did is I actually welded a piece of brown stock to the back of that knife, and that's what I'm hanging on to it with. So with this steel, because it's 1095 high carbon, we really want to watch the heat so that we don't eat the carbon right up in the forge. And we also don't want to work it cold. And it's not exactly as warm as I'd like it, but I want the heat right here, and that's what I mean when I say the heat is very isolated in a coal fire. So you gotta make sure that where you do want the heat to go, you cover. The rest of it, you just kind of poke out through the top. And I need something to grab that with that one. When I do it. Now, it's okay to leave your work in there. Just going and burning down like this. Where you get into problems is when you're stepping on that and you're pushing air up through it. If I was to leave it in here like this, I could very easily burn the steel. So what I'm trying to do is just draw it out, thin this piece back here so that I don't have to do as much grinding. I am kind of getting towards the butt end of that knife, so I don't know how much more I can do forge-wise, at least for tonight, because there are some upgrades that are fairly evident that are necessary. I was only expecting to do like a little test fire and maybe a 5-minute live thing. But here we are.
Instead of a 35-minute live thing.
If you're wondering what I've been doing with my nights.
Looks like fun.
You want to... want to give it a swing, so to speak?
Nah, I'm good. Actually, probably should get heading out pretty quick.
Don't leave me. If you give me like a couple minutes, I will call it a night with this. So there we go. I'm pretty happy with that. The rest I can just grind down. Now I'm not going to quench this like you saw me do the other piece of steel. That's being high carbon. I would actually harden it, and we don't want that because it would be a bear to work. So we're going to put that inside and let it air cool. So the last thing for tonight, last but not least, is we're going to straighten that out. So what we'll do is we'll bury it in there, get it good and hot. And if we get it hot enough, it should be just pretty much leaning it on the anvil, straighten it. But if it needs more, I can just stick it in the hardy hole and straighten. And for those of you that are surprised that I've gone this far into smithing, we're probably equally surprised, me and you, about how far this has gone. It's fun as... Anyways, what was you saying?
Dan says you're the Bob Ross of blacksmithing.
There are no accidents, and no mistakes, just happy creations. And forge. So I do want to get this thing pretty hot, but we don't want to go too hot because what that'll do is it'll actually oxidize or burn out the carbon, and then we don't have a knife anymore, knife steel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take half of those tongs and throw it in the snow so I can use it to stoke this fire. One thing that's kind of crummy is steel cools. It can be black, so you'll think it's cold, and it can still be at somewhere near 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
You know from experience yet?
No, fortunately I was told that in words, not in heat. So how I got this far, if you're wondering. Oh man, that's gonna heat up. That's alright. I did this thing at Blandford Nature Center, and that's called Blacksmith's Apprentice. That's a day-long class. And then after that, every first Saturday of every month, they have open forge. So that's when you can link back up with those same smiths and learn. The bladesmith that I linked up with wants to do like a little, or make like a little guild, and so he's the guy that I got the coal from, etc. So that spring steel is pretty thick. It's gonna maybe take another minute or two sitting in there. I also am trying to with this how much air I'm putting in here. We don't want that popcorn type crap to happen because we don't have a hood yet. I thought I wouldn't need one. If you're wondering why in the heck I just didn't make one in the first place. We're getting there.
Wrong.
White hot. And if you are seeing what I'm doing, I don't even need the hammer to straighten it. the beauty of hot steel.
So why are you hitting it from that side instead of the other side? Why are you hitting the metal that you're holding from that side instead of the other side?
The other side of the anvil, or?
No, you were hitting it.
Or why am I rolling?
Why are you hitting here?
So I was trying to straighten out this little bend that was going up.
Okay.
One of the things that's kind of weird is, like when you're actually, if I was to try to draw this out, what you want to do is go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And that actually starts to make it a little square. Now this is not workable. It's past critical and it is straightened, which was my goal for the night. What I should actually have is vermiculite. It's just that Ace Hardware was closed and I wasn't able to pick anything up. So what I need to do is I need to anneal this, because spring steel is actually quite hard even when it comes out of a car. And what's nifty about this is I just welded, I mean, it looks like a red dog wiener, but I welded this basically stick or handhold on the back, and even though this thing is stupid hot, the heat is not transferring. So we'll do a little bit more, straighten out this tip, and then we'll call it good. So to put this sucker out, what we will do is we'll throw a rotor just over the top of it. And if you're wondering where would you get brake rotors, make friends with your mechanic. And then that'll basically snuff it out. That is good enough for now. I'm going to see if I can locate some salt or lime. I'm pretty sure I have them in my garage. That's decent enough medium to anneal, so I'll be back in 2 seconds. Any more questions out there?
Not there. See, let me go look. Nope, not yet.
So I lied. I don't have any lime. So I'm going to use sand, which is a terrible idea because it actually gets melted and sticks to the steel, but I can grind that down, and when in need, you use what you got.
So what are you doing with sand?
So I want to let this cool down slower than it would just if it was air cooled,
Okay.
and this will insulate it.
Yeah.
And that slow temperature drop, so it's not even air cooled, is going to allow that steel to become much more malleable.
Okay.
Like I was saying, you really don't want to use sand, but that's all I got right now. Good old Ace Hardware closes at 8 o'clock. And I didn't know that, and I went dumpster diving for steel and all sorts of. So I'm going to bring this back up to critical, and then we'll throw it in there. Since I don't have my magnet handy, critical is a cherry red color. Well, there's a win for the night. I didn't burn myself just now. If that wind would go the other way, that would be glorious. So, what's kind of a pain in the ass right now, aside from the fact that I forgot to put my safety glasses down, is the length of that piece of steel. It's really a little bit too large to be working, but I want to have enough material to make a short sword. So I got a little overzealous when I cut it. So if you are a forged in fire fan and you hear the coal fires, this is what they mean. There's one hot spot and you have to keep moving the steel so you don't overheat. Definitely takes a lot more work. To run coal. Hey, I promise I'm not. I'm sorry that I'm not like being more friendly, but there's a fire that won't be tended to.
Green now. FYI, it is 10 p.m. by the way.
There.
And said you wanted to stop at 9:30, so that's why I'm just reminding.
Alright, that is good enough. Throw that in there. cover it with sand. Every time a car drives by, little.
Especially when they slow down. Like that
Yep.
one did.
Well, I mean, he's probably wondering what the Can't blame him. All right.
We got another message.
Y'all are probably wondering how to put this out. Answer is quite simple. We take a rotor and we just put it over the top of the drum. What was the message?
It was somebody else was joining.
Ah. All right. Now,
Dan says that was pretty cool. Do more.
word to the wise: don't stick your hand over a coal fire.
I can't read the rest of the message because their stands north.
It hurts. So that rotor obviously has a hole in the top, which is going to be problematic if I'm trying to shut down the oxygen flow. Fortunately, the brick I was going to use is frozen in you know.
You probably took it off.
All right. There we go. And you can hear that sizzling.
Dan says do more in the daylight so they can see more of it.
Yep, I hear you. Saturdays are going to be a good time. If anybody wants to come out and join me, I totally love the company. And I don't have a problem with sharing, so if you want to come pound on the anvil, it's a lot safer than it you might actually think. If you're really interested and want to get to know the stuff from more than just me, Open Forge next, was it December or whatever the first Saturday is?
No idea.
It's from 10 o'clock at Blandford Nature Center, and it's $35. And there's going to be 3 or 4 other smiths there. You can make stuff. I got a better cap to put this out with. So the table base is an old welding table. The top of it, I just cracked that stone. The top of it, I welded together myself. The edges, everything. And I am also surprised about that because I never thought I'd actually be able to weld or put anything like this together. What I'm checking for right now is, does my air intake get too hot? And the answer is no. Nice. Plug up the bottom. Then we'll go inside and see if I have any beers for my buddy that joined me. If not, I have whiskey for sure. What we should have done is roasted marshmallows.
Yeah, that was fun.
So, end result is we have far better looking tongs. These will go together like this. One of them I haven't put in the snow yet, so I'm afraid to touch. Bear with me. So they'll go together like so. We'll bolt them together. Yeah, it's probably fine. I just don't want to test it. And then once it's just basically bolted together at this pivot joint, we'll knock the head back, forth, up, down, shape it. Make sure that everything's good, and then we can rip out the bolt, put in a oh, look at that.
Oh, you're usually going to test it whether or not you're ready to.
And then we'll rivet it. And to rivet, what I will basically do is I have a hardened block of steel that I drilled like a round hole into. we will get a small pin-sized piece of metal hot, and we'll put it down into that hole, and then we'll just strike it, which will basically round out the bottom. That goes through where the bolt used to be, and then you put everything together and just smack it in the top, and then rivet done. Tongs complete. They are ugly as hell. I made a ton of mistakes, but I'm learning. And I'm learning to not trip on this thing. So anyways, I think that's it. We're just gonna let her cool down. If you have questions, just comment. I will do the best I can to answer, and if I don't know the answer, I am about this close to getting a quasi apprenticeship with a bladesmith, so if I don't know, I will ask him. See you guys.